Kumodi TV, man, back with another one. Right now, we're gonna go look back at Syria and what's going on between the Syrian army and the SDF. You know, as you know, if you've seen some of my videos already, they have had clashes going on for a few days now, after they had a meeting to integrate into the army. I believe last year the SDF signed some type of agreement to integrate into the Syrian army, but obviously they control an area and control resources to where if they wouldn't want to just give that up, they have no incentive to just give that up. Basically, they have zero incentive to give up what they have. And yeah, I mean, they do not want to. They want sovereignty for the Kurdish people. I'm assuming they want Kurdistan to exist. So we're gonna go into this. You know, there has been some clashes in Aleppo, and I believe the Syrian army has ran the SDF completely out of Aleppo. So let's get into these videos, man. We'll also go on Telegram after this and see what's been going on since the last time we checked on Telegram.
Aleppo's governor has told Al Jazeera that the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces have left the city after days of conflict. Government forces have been coordinating the withdrawal of SDF fighters on buses out of Aleppo overnight. It comes after the Syrian army took over the Kurdish-majority neighbourhood of Sheikh Maksud. Army and SDF forces had been fighting throughout Saturday. In one attack, an armed drone struck a government building where ministers were addressing media. A week of conflict broke out after talks to integrate the SDF into the National Army collapsed. The SDF's commander-in-chief issuing this statement: "We've reached an understanding that leads to a ceasefire and securing the evacuation of the dead, the wounded, the stranded civilians, and the fighters from the Ashrafiyah and Sheikh Maksud neighbourhoods to northern and eastern Syria. We call on the mediators to adhere to their promises to stop the violations and work toward a safe return for the displaced to their homes." All right, let's bring in Ayman Ogana now, live from Damascus. And Ayman, the last of those SDF forces appear to be leaving Aleppo, but what more do we know about the agreement that was reached?
That's right, Anna. The SDF forces who have been fighting Damascus in Aleppo since Tuesday have now left the city on buses to the northeast. SDF Commander Mazloum Abdi said in a statement early this morning that they had reached an understanding for a ceasefire. He also thanked international mediators. The key mediator in dealing with Damascus and the SDF is, of course, the US. We know that US Special Envoy to Syria, Tom Barak, has been in the region working on this and talking to both sides. The US is in a key position to mediate because it enjoys very close ties to both the SDF and to Damascus. More than a decade ago, the US started working with the SDF to eradicate ISIL in Syria. They have trained the SDF, they have equipped the SDF, they have fought alongside the SDF, and indeed 900 US soldiers are currently stationed in SDF territory. But then we've...
Damn, and then this is this other thing, like they're always saying ISIL, now it's ISIL, and they would say ISIS, ISIL, like people in the region call them Daesh, and they do not like that. So I don't know why we don't call them that, why we haven't normalized that phrase in the West if they don't like to be called that. I don't know why we're honoring the name they like to be called. I mean, hey, maybe the rumors people say are true and we back them and actually support them because they've never really, you know, attacked Israel or anything. And then I guess there's been some attacks in America, but we're not really sure if those are actually 100%, you know, linked to them. They're just people, like anyone can go do something and then say, yeah, I did it for this cause or for that cause or because of this or because of that. But did they really fund or influence you to do that? Did they tell you to do that? I'm not so sure that they did.
We've seen another change in their building of closer, deeper ties to Damascus. Just over a year ago, Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara was designated a terrorist by the US with a bounty on his head. But in several meetings, they have deepened and strengthened ties with Washington, including last November when President Ahmed al-Shara was in Washington and formally joined the coalition against ISIL. Now, ISIL may be a factor in bringing these two sides together, with the US brokering partnership. Even tonight, the US has struck ISIL positions in Syria. So the US has a key role to play in mediating the ceasefire, where fighting has killed more than 30, wounded almost 200, and displaced 160,000 people. Whether this ceasefire will hold will depend on the brokerage of the US.
Yeah.
And if this ceasefire unravels, it'll threaten not only the situation on the ground, but also the fragile diplomacy that's holding Syria's national unity in place.
All right, so...
Yeah, and I don't understand how, like, we have somebody who was literally just designated as a terrorist leader. We allow his group that we have labeled as a terrorist group to infiltrate the Syrian government, take over the Syrian government, and now we're just recognizing him as the president. Like, oh yeah, this terrorist and his terrorist group take over the country, and we just support that. But it's like, if we didn't want to support it, then it would just be, oh, they're terrorists and we label them as such and all of this. Like, basically what I'm saying is we could say whatever we want. It seems like we could just say or label whoever, whatever. Like, we could just do anything and it doesn't matter to anyone, I guess, because this dude is literally the leader of a foreign terrorist organization, and he's a terrorist with a bounty, and we supported him and helped him take over a country, and now we accept he's the leader of that country. We remove him off a terrorist watch list, remove his bounty, and now everything is just peaches and cream. He's in America shooting hoops with our service members.
A ceasefire at the moment, but does peace reign? Is this the end of fighting in Aleppo?
Well, Syrians would certainly hope so, but there are a lot of problems. The main fault line for this crisis has been the failure to integrate the SDF into Damascus institutions. This is the backdrop in which we've seen fighting. Last March, there was a so-called historic deal between Damascus and the SDF to integrate the SDF into government institutions and security forces. They were given a deadline then to integrate by the end of 2025. Obviously, we're now in the new year, well beyond 2025, and the failure to integrate has sparked these clashes. There are a lot of issues that remain unresolved and might be unsurmountable in terms of integration. The SDF has, estimates vary, but between 50 and 90,000 fighters, well-trained fighters equipped by the US. Damascus would like to see these fighters come in under government control, whereas the SDF would like to hold autonomy and command structure over these units. Now, this recent fighting might be a step that will motivate the SDF to take more seriously integration into the Syrian state, but it might also, conversely, be a reason for the SDF to be suspicious of Damascus and retain control of their forces in order to preserve autonomy in the northeast of the country.
Ayman, thank you so much. That's Ayman Ogana joining us live from Damascus. Yes.
Don't miss out.
Yeah, bro, like, they're not going to integrate, bro. They have zero incentive to do so. And they want an independent Kurdish nation. They want the official Kurdistan to be on the map. Like they just said in the video, they have been an ally to us in the war on terror, and we have had them in the region fighting alongside us on our behalf, allied with us, and then as soon as we leave, that's you're on your own. See you later. Figure it out yourself. Figure out what you're gonna do. Oh, you control all this region, and you guys are separate, and you want your own nation. Oh, that's your problem. Even though we claim to be the biggest, most powerful nation on earth, and we're the world superpower, and we can do whatever we want, but we can't help an ally who's been helping us fight a war for 15 years, 20 years. Are you serious? We can't do that for them. We can't at least, at the very bare minimum, advocate for them at the UN or something of that nature. We can't do anything for them. That is pretty fucked up.
Syrian armies in the process of securing Aleppo after a ceasefire deal ended 5 days of battles with Kurdish fighters. The government says it's working to remove explosives and has uncovered weapons caches. A ministry statement said among those weapons was a vehicle rigged with mortar shells and suicide drones. People returning to neighbourhoods, including Sheikh Maqsoud, found burnt-out vehicles and buildings still smouldering from the fighting. Kurdish fighters who withdrew from Aleppo have been arriving in their stronghold of Hasakah in the northeast. All right. In a moment, we'll be speaking to Ayman Ogana, who's in the Syrian capital, Damascus. But first, let's go to Bernard Smith, who is in Aleppo. And Bernard, you are in the city where these deadly clashes were happening. Can you talk to us about what you've seen about the aftermath and how much work there is to allow normal life to resume there?
So there were two neighbourhoods which were the focus of these confrontations between the SDF, Kurdish-backed SDF forces, and the Syrian government forces, Ashrafia and Sheikh Maqsoud. Now, Ashrafia, in fact, most people have now been able to go back home there. More were being bussed in earlier today, but a lot went back home yesterday. It's a slightly different scenario in Sheikh Maqsoud. People have still not been able to go back, apart from perhaps people who live on the sort of very outskirts of the neighbourhood. Now, the government says they're still essentially searching for clues and for evidence. The SDF controlled this area for about 14 years. So within it, the government, being it was an SDF stronghold, is looking for evidence to how they operate and how they were working. And also we know they are looking for prisoners as well, people who were arrested during the fall of the Assad regime, people who'd fled during the fighting, civil activists, opposition fighters at the time. The SDF was allied with Assad's forces and they were kept prisoner in Sheikh Maqsoud. It's understood, so they're looking for them as well. So far, residents have not been able to go back there, and we're also getting reports that the SDF and government forces are regrouping about 50 kilometres or so to the east of Aleppo, further into the countryside, regrouping, but no reports of any fighting there at the moment.
OK, you mentioned there, though, that the SDF...
So from what he's saying, it doesn't sound like they're ready to integrate. It doesn't sound like they're backing down. It sounds to me like they are regrouping and they're replenishing their supplies, tending to their wounded, tending to their, fallen soldiers. And they're going to prepare for the next clash. They're going to prepare for the next situation, wherever that may be in the country. But I don't think they're ready to give up any of anything they've gained. They consider that to be their sovereignty. They are not going for anything. I don't think they're going to integrate at all. Other people have different hopes or whatever, but I don't think they're going to, and I don't think they should, honestly. I mean, these are independent people who have their own type of thing going on. They basically have their own country, but nobody wants to acknowledge it. It's kind of it is a very messed up situation. And somebody should be advocating for them in the UN, but I guess not.
Had control of for around 14 years. That's quite a long time. And yet when all of this, the bussing out was first brought to attention and the SDF were volunteering to go, the context to that was that they were doing it to help the civilians or the residents who do live in these areas. Can you give us some more context as to your understanding of why the SDF made that decision and that statement?
Well, the SDF said that they had left Sheikh Maqsoud. They accused the Syrian government forces of shelling, of targeting civilian locations, of a hospital, of schools, where civilians were. The Syrian government strongly denies that. And they said that they left essentially to stop further destruction or further attacks on where civilians were leaving. They said that they haven't given up, they haven't surrendered, that they will continue resisting in other ways. But And we know, for example, that the Syrian Information Ministry website was hacked. That's thought to have been behind the SDF. And also, as I say, they're regrouping further to the east of Aleppo. And that indicates that the challenge of trying to integrate these forces still remains, because the SDF and the Syrian government forces are supposed to...
Exactly what I just said. They're regrouping. It doesn't seem like they're ready to integrate to me.
Have been integrated more than, well, almost a year ago now. It's still not happened, and if those forces are regrouping to the east of Aleppo, it doesn't give an immediate indication that there's any sort of coming together of those forces in the near future.
Bernard Smith joining us from Aleppo. Thank you very much. Let's go now to Ayman Ogana, who is joining us from Damascus. And Ayman, Bernard just then talking about the integration, which I want to talk to you a bit more about. But first, the SDF, as Bernard also mentioned, bussed back to an area known to be a stronghold of its forces. So how does this all play out for the government?
Well, obviously, Anna, this is a strategic victory for the Damascus government, as they now have full control of Aleppo, Syria's largest city, free of SDF fighters. But the government's messaging has not been about victory. Instead, it's been about national unity. They have called the events in Aleppo a limited law enforcement operation and have made clear in several statements that their quarrel is not with the Kurds or Kurdish people, who they say are an important part of Syria's and Aleppo's social fabric. We've spoken to people here in Damascus, including Kurds, who share the government's sentiment. They want to preserve national unity under one authority, but some are worried that the showdown in Aleppo could spark a broader conflict between the SDF and...
Yeah, maybe some Kurdish people feel that way or whatever, but there is a large number of Kurdish people who believe in the idea of Kurdistan. They have all of these different areas they control that are throughout a bunch of different countries, which is a large enough area to create their own country. So why not? Why not pursue that? It's very, very annoying. And then I don't know why the U.S. doesn't help them do that, because they would be an ally to us, and we would probably be able to set up bases there, set up whatever we want there. They would be willing to let us do whatever we need to do as long as we support them. And they have a much more formidable army, it seems, than a lot of other nations we support in the Middle East, and they're much larger than Qatar, Bahrain, UAE. Their country isn't bigger than Saudi, but I don't know how the military compares or the people compares. You know, Saudi is a large nation, but a lot of it, I'm pretty sure, is just desert. So they might even be a stronger military than Saudi, if I'm not wrong. But you know, that would be something that would be a strategic advantage for the U.S. And I don't know why we don't support that, but let's continue.
And Damascus. Now, such a conflict would be extremely bloody, as both sides have formidable forces and arms. The SDF alone is said to have between 50 and 100,000 fighters. Now, these fighters are well-trained, US-equipped, combat-tested fighters, and this is a watershed moment to see whether the events in Aleppo will instigate a peaceful integration of the SDF or indeed spark a larger conflict in Syria.
Yeah, you talk about the conflict, Ayman, and the premise was, as you said, that the SDF was to integrate with the Syrian army. Is that a realistic expectation on the current situation?
Well, it's difficult to say right now. The violence in Aleppo may make clear to the SDF the necessity that they have to integrate into Syrian state institutions peacefully, or it could make them more reluctant to put down their weapons. We spoke to some Syrian Kurds in the northeast of Syria, and they said that violence in the southern city of Suwaida may have led the SDF more reluctant to lay down their arms. Now, last March, in a so-called historic meeting, the SDF met with Damascus and said that they would integrate into Syrian state institutions before the end of 2025. Well, obviously, it's the new year, and that hasn't happened, and the reluctance of the SDF could linger as the government and the SDF have increased their fighting against each other, which many fear could cause a broader conflict which would be extremely bloody indeed and really be bad for Syria's national unity, which is what the government says it's trying to preserve above all else.
Ayman Ogana, thank you very much for joining us from Damascus.
Oh my God, that wind was so annoying. But yeah, man, the Kurds have no incentive to integrate. I don't think they're going to. This is going to lead to just a larger civil war. Probably will lead to becoming an actual civil war. You know, these are just small little skirmishes at this moment. Okay, I'm not going to show that on screen. It was the Syrian army wiping their feet on someone's face. Not really sure who. I don't know if it's SDF or it's Daesh or what, but they're wiping their feet on someone's face. I'm not going to put that up here. I think this was, yeah, this was on that news clip. Oh, that's the aftermath. Yeah, it was already on there. Yeah, so if you missed this on the news clip, this is a drone hitting a government building launched by the SDF. This is the aftermath. Some of the damage it left. I believe they said they were having a meeting in the building at the time when that happened. So, gotta be pretty scary for whoever the government officials are in that building. You're just having a meeting about what's going on, and then boom, drone just hits the building you're in. Definitely gotta be a scary situation. Yeah, so all I'm seeing is just, you know, crowds and crowds of people leaving. What does this say? QSD militia prisoners. This says QSD militia prisoners held by the Syrian army. Yeah, so I'm not really sure what QSD militia is. Could look it up. QSD militia. Oh, it's the SDF. Yeah, so I guess it refers to the SDF. That's just how you say it in, I guess, Kurdish, or I'm not sure, Kurdish or Arabic, maybe, I'm not sure. So I guess a bunch of SDF were captured in Syria. Yeah, they're getting bussed out of there. Yeah, so this is more people captured. I guess there wasn't that much video evidence of things going on since the last time we checked in on Telegram. It says it's 300 people. I'm not really sure if that's actually 300 people, but it says 300 Syrian army captures 300 fighters from the SDF militias in the Sheikh Maksud neighborhood after the end of military operations. Okay, yeah, so this is some of the stuff they found left behind in the neighborhood, I guess. Yeah, not really much to show. Okay, so this is them mobilizing east of Aleppo, as they were saying on Al Jazeera. So they're just all gathering in the outskirts of Aleppo, I guess. And it specifically says SDF militia is mobilizing remnants of the regime's forces from the coast who were recently recruited by the SDF in Deir Hafer, east of Aleppo, to attack Syrian government-controlled areas. They declare that their goal is to reach the coast. Okay. So, yeah, they're definitely not integrating. That is a pipe dream. Definitely not happening. Okay, and this area in red is to be considered a closed military zone by the Syrian army. So this area, I assume, will be closed off to civilians and no one will be allowed to pass through. And if you are, I guess you will be assumed to be SDF. No way. No way, bro. Is this a cactus on a drone? That cannot be a cactus on a drone, bro. What is this?
الله يتقبلكم يا شباب. بس لا يبوسون بعض. ما بك.
Okay, now. For a second, you look back, it looks like it's some chopped up cactus from back here, but these closer up angles, nah, that's not a cactus. I assume that is some type of explosive device on the drone. Let's see if we could find anything else on Telegram related to Syria. Yeah, I don't really see anything new on Syria. We can go back to here and just see if there's anything that was missed. Maybe this was all like updated and I clicked on something by mistake and missed some of the clashes from the previous days. But the only thing I have that I didn't show is just a drone in the sky, which, I mean, that isn't really interesting. It's just a drone flying. And then, like I said before, the guy wiping his feet on someone's face, which isn't really that interesting either. It's pretty disrespectful. I don't know who he's disrespecting, so I don't want to show that. Yeah, no, I'm going back and I remembered the last video, so no, that's the only updates. So I guess we're on top of everything, the whole conflict. There wasn't really much left of the conflict, or I guess there was, but there's not really much video online about it, just the stuff that I showed and the stuff that was on Al Jazeera. So yeah, the newest update was that zone is declared a military zone in Syria. So that's it for this one, man. Kumo DTV everywhere. Kumo Cast on YouTube. Go follow, like, comment, subscribe, share the video. I'm out.